Yo, so let's talk about that. Is fair versus unfair. That's what you were talking about earlier, right, Raul? Is like fair versus unfair. Life's not fair, is what you said, correct?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
It,
mean, I had a guy. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Sorry, my bad.
you had a guy. Go ahead.
No, I had a guy. He's struggling with the culture of where we work. He was struggling with the culture of the team, and he's like, every time that I do something, I'm trying to do the right thing. Every time I do something wrong, it just comes down on my head. And I was just like, look, dude, I'm going to tell you something, and it's not a religious idea. It's the wages of sin is death. He's like, what does that mean? I'm just like, the punishment is the punishment. If you cross the line and you did something wrong, the punishment that you get, there is no, hey, be soft on him. He's okay. He only messed up once. Like, no, these are the rules. You follow them. You cross the line. Whatever we dole out to you is that. It is, in theory, unfair. I get that. But I had to explain to him, like, understanding that whatever they come down on you with, whatever they yell at you about, whatever they do to you, it is what it is. You cannot sit there and dwell on how unfair it is because that's not going to change your perspective. Like, it is never going to change. They can go soft on you one day. If you cross the line and they did nothing to punish you, are you going to say, hey, why don't you punish me more? No, but you're here saying, oh, I crossed the line and you're punishing me too much. Like, that's not your call. Like, you got to understand that whatever the punishment is that you get is the punishment. Accept it and move forward. That's the only thing you can do in an unfair system. Is accept that it's unfair and move about your life. You'll be a lot happier. And since then, he's kind of picked that up. He understands. Hey, look, I messed up. They're gonna be mad. This is an unfair system. Like, I am here in an unfair world where the only thing that I have control over is how I feel, what my reaction is to that unfairness. So you cry about it, you can whine about it, or you just be like, all right, just won't do it again. That's hard. This is an older guy too. Like, this is something that probably could have helped him a lot longer ago, but this example helped him in this scenario. But yeah, life, I always feel like my outlook, and a lot of people said my outlook's negative. Life, if you have to say if life is inherently unfair or fair, I would go on to say that life honestly doesn't care about fairness or unfairness. It simply just is. And when you accept that it is, you don't dwell on what's unfair and what's not fair, you're going to have a lot easier time. If you go ahead and you say, hey, look, life is consistently unfair in these terms. Like, there's a lot of proof to that. Once you kind of accept that, that kind of takes the sting out of whatever happens to you. And I'm not saying, a lot of the things that are unfair hurt. I get that. But you have the rest of your life to move forward from that. That's my view on, like, the unfairness. That's how I handle the unfairness in the world. Yes, it is unfair. I hate that I pay more in tax. I hate that I got a ticket. I hate that someone bumped into me, you know, because they weren't paying attention. That's unfair. I was in the right. I was parked in the right spot. I was driving the right speed, and they hit me. That's unfair. Okay, it is. It is what it is. It doesn't change it. It doesn't change the scenario. It doesn't change what happened to you. The only thing you have control over is how you deal with that unfairness. That's kind of where I come from in all this, and it's made me a lot more because a lot of the times I used to get in the minutia of, like, this unfair. My dad's in prison. My mom's got to work. My family's got problems, things like that. Honestly, dwelling on those things and using them as, like, a reason to complain didn't help me. Accepting what I did have control over did, as a young man, as a boy, things like that. But I don't know. Maybe people view those things in life differently. But that's what's helped me become a much happier person in life. If any of
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes 100%. So yeah, so this is another thing that, like, nobody mentioned as far as, so I agree 100% what you're saying, Raul. Even
Hmm.
Bill Gates said, life is unfair, get used to it. You know what I'm saying? Life is unfair, get
Yeah,
used to it. And
absolute fact.
but this is something that Evan Pagan said that blew my mind. He said, life is unfair is actually good fucking news. It's actually good news because that means that we could use that to our advantage. I mean, think about it. If life was fair, that means what? Everybody makes the same amount of money. $20,000 a year. Everybody makes the same amount of money, and life is fair, so nobody can get ahead. And then, if that's fair, that's fair. But life is unfair, so we could use that to our advantage. We can make 5 million a year, 10 million a year, even though that's not fair.
I mean, that's exactly true. I mean, it's like the idea of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Well, what if you knew both scenarios? What if you just accepted that both scenarios are going to happen, could potentially happen? That opens up the person. If someone does feel that the world is unfair and takes it negatively, instead of just, well, let me take a step back. We've all had that person where we don't know which side of the line they step on, but the minute they do, or the minute you meet somebody who is, you know what, this is what I believe. This is like, so let's take it political. You have that one person, you don't know if they're left, you don't know if they're right, you don't know what to say about them. They react to things differently. And then you got that one person who's like, I am an ultra left wing person. This is what I believe. Okay, fair. I'm not going to try to change your mind, but now I can find things to talk about that don't cross that line. That's a big win right there. And to sit there and say life is always going to land on the fair side. Okay, now I can accept it. And the unfair side, now that I can accept that it is unfair, and I'm going to get an unfair advantage in some scenarios where I'm not going to get, and there's going to be scenarios that are going to go unfair in my favor. That's a big transition in the mindset right there of how to deal with life, how to deal with the ups and downs of life. Life is going to be unfair, but you know what? This happened to me, which is completely a miracle in itself. Thank you. Like, now I can be positive, and I know that even in an unfair playing field, that doesn't mean that I don't have anything working for me. I think he hit the nail right on the head at that point. Like, he's definitely speaking facts on that.
Yeah.